A story of truth, power, and one student who refused to stay silent. It began, as most things do at Johns Hoopkins University, with silence. Not the kind found in libraries or whispered across dorm rooms at 2 a.m. This silence was heavy, cultivated, paid for, the kind that blanketed scandals and made inconvenient truths disappear. Anaya Jamesbond didn't realize she was walking into it when she opened the envelope. She had been halfway through her third black coffee in the basement of the Concordia Hoopkins Library when the letter slid from between the pages of her faculty advisor's journal. The same journal she'd been asked to help catalog after his sudden leave of absence. Dr. Adam Rhinehart, tenured professor, internationally published. The department's rising star in behavioral neuroscience. And just like that, gone. No farewell email. No formal announcement. Just one terse message from the dean's office. Dr. Rhinehart will be taking indefinite medical leave effective immediately. Anaya didn't buy it. Not because she was a skeptic, though she was, but because she'd spent the last 2 years working under Rhinehart as a research assistant, and nothing about him had ever seemed uncertain. Until last week. The envelope was plain, unmarked except for her name typed neatly across the front. Inside, one single sheet of paper. Photocopied. Faded. At the bottom, in red pen, find the original dataset. Study 4. Appendix D was altered. Anaya stared at the note. Then at the name scrawled across the top of the page. Dr. Adam Rhinehart. Published in the Journal of Applied Cognition. Study, Neural Response in Adolescent Risk Behavior. She knew the study. It was his biggest one. The paper that got him a $2.4 million federal grant. The paper she had helped format for publication. And according to this, the numbers had been changed. Her stomach turned. She looked around the library basement. Empty. Fluorescent lights buzzing like insects above her head. She folded the note and slid it into her bag. If this was real, it could destroy his career. And if it was fake, someone wanted her to believe it wasn't. Whispers in the system. That night, Anaya couldn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, not yet, but because a sharp, familiar part of her mind refused to let go. The part that got her a scholarship from Karachi to one of America's most elite institutions. The part that refused to be overlooked, even in a place built to overlook girls like her. She opened her laptop and pulled up the published study. Downloaded from Johns Hoopkins University's research archive. Flipping to Appendix D, her eyes traced the columns of raw data. Risk Group 1, Average Neural Response, 0.87. Control Group, Average Response, 0.55. And then she checked the copy from the envelope. Risk Group 1, 0.72. Control Group, 0.55. The control group hadn't changed. The risk group had been inflated. Her breath caught. The entire thesis of the paper, that certain types of adolescent brains show higher activity in risk processing regions, hinged on that number. Without it, the statistical significance collapsed. And if that was true, Dr. Rhinehart's grant, his credibility, his lectures, his invited TED Talk, all built on a number someone had nudged upward. She needed answers. But when she tried logging into the university's shared research drive to compare earlier drafts, she hit a wall. Access denied. Even as a registered RA on the project, her permissions had been revoked. Anaya leaned back in her chair. Pulse pounding. Someone was already burying the trail. The girl with the janitor key. 2 days later, she met the only person willing to help her. His name was Eli Navarro. He worked nights in the science building, emptying bins and restocking paper towels. He didn't say much. Had earbuds in most of the time. But he always gave her a nod when she worked late. That night, when she lingered in the hallway too long, staring at the door to Dr. Rhinehart's office, Eli paused. You trying to get in? He asked quietly. She turned. Swallowed. I used to work with him. You still have keycard access? No. They revoked it. He studied her face. Then looked down the hallway. No one's coming for the next 30 minutes. He pulled out a dull silver key from his ring and slid it into the lock. You didn't see me, he said and walked away. The office was dark. Dusty. Papers had been cleared, the desk wiped. But Anaya went straight to the bookshelf. Hidden behind a row of pristine psychology texts was what she'd hoped for, a backup hard drive. Rhinehart had always bragged about keeping his real data offline to protect against server leaks. She grabbed it, slipped it into her tote, and left before her breath could fog the window. It took her 4 hours and a borrowed decryption tool from a CS major she bribed with cafeteria meal points. Inside the hard drive was a folder labeled study_4_prelim_final_real. When she opened the raw CSV file, the numbers matched the envelope. Not the published version. 0.72, not 0.87. He changed the data. Whether it was Rhinehart himself or someone higher up, she didn't know yet. But someone lied to secure a grant. Someone doctored science to get rich. And now, whoever it was, they knew she was looking. Because when she opened her university email the next morning, a new message sat at the top. Subject, urgent, academic integrity concern. From, Office of Student Conduct. A formal complaint has been submitted regarding your unauthorized access to restricted research files. You are to appear before the disciplinary board Monday morning. The boardroom trap. Monday came like a summons. The Johns Hoopkins disciplinary board was housed in the oldest wing of the administration building, all dark oak and fake smiles. Anaya arrived 10 minutes early, wearing the only formal outfit she owned, a charcoal blazer from a thrift store and the same black boots she'd worn to her visa interview 3 years ago. Inside, 3 faculty members sat behind a long table. At the center was Dean Wallace, flanked by Dr. Liu from the ethics committee, and a woman Anaya had never seen before. Ms. Jamesbond, the dean said, not bothering to smile, we are here today to discuss a very serious matter. Unauthorized access to restricted research files belonging to Dr. Adam Rhinehart. Anaya met his eyes. With respect, sir, the files in question contain falsified data. A pause. Dean Wallace blinked once. Slowly. That is not the matter before us. No, Anaya said sharper now, but maybe it should be. Dr. Liu leaned forward. You're suggesting Dr. Rhinehart, one of this university's most distinguished researchers, committed fraud? I'm not suggesting. I'm showing you. She reached into her bag and pulled out 2 printouts. One from the published paper and one from the original dataset she'd recovered. She slid them across the table. You can verify it yourself. Appendix D was altered. The numbers were inflated. That grant was secured with fake data. No one touched the papers. Dean Wallace cleared his throat. This is not the appropriate venue for such claims. I tried going through appropriate channels, she shot back. But someone made sure I lost access before I could. Silence. Then the unknown woman finally spoke. I'm Dr. Heather Blake. I handle compliance investigations for the university's legal counsel. May I ask where you obtained this version of the dataset? Anaya didn't blink. From Dr. Rhinehart's office. On a hard drive. So you admit to unauthorized entry? I admit to protecting the integrity of science. Dean Wallace's voice tightened. This meeting is not a whistleblower hearing. It's a disciplinary review. You will hand over the drive and any related materials immediately. No, she said. Not unless it's through a federal inquiry or a neutral third-party investigator. A flicker of irritation crossed Blake's face. Ms. Jamesbond, let me be clear. Failure to comply could result in your suspension. Or worse. Anaya stood. Then suspend me. She walked out of the room with her heart pounding, hands shaking, but spine straight. They weren't trying to find the truth. They were trying to shut her up. The list she wasn't meant to see. Anaya didn't go back to her dorm. She took the long way across campus, hoodie up, eyes low, every step sharp with adrenaline. She wasn't paranoid. Not yet, but she'd seen what happened to whistleblowers in places like Johns Hoopkins. They didn't just get silenced. They got erased. Instead, she headed to the one place she knew they wouldn't look for her. The mailroom annex behind the old observatory. No cameras. No Wi-Fi. Just peeling paint and an old Ethernet jack nobody used. She plugged in the hard drive. Not the one from Rhinehart's office. She'd already made a copy and stored the original in a locker at Union Station. What she had now was her backup. And one last file she hadn't touched yet. A zipped folder titled _scrants_archive_2019. She entered the decryption password. The folder exploded into life. Hundreds of PDFs, email backups, financial forms, scanned memos, and one Excel sheet titled donor_confidence_final_v3.xlsx. She opened it. Rows of data. Each row listed. A professor's name. Their research topic. Date of publication. Federal grant received. Amended output. A column of altered statistics. Notes column. Justified. Minor edit. Approved. Or flag for rewrite. And at the very top. Header. School of Public Health. Research Strategy 2019 to 2023. It wasn't just Rhinehart. There were 19 names on that list. Professors she'd seen on billboards. Who spoke at commencements. Who were given awards for global research excellence. Every one of them had altered data. Every one tied to millions in grant money. And under a tab labeled Donor Strategy Notes, she found something worse. Maintain public confidence, suppress internal dissent. All whistleblower alerts to be routed through Office of Conduct. Review high-risk students, especially international scholars, for containment protocol if needed. Her breath caught. Containment protocol? Her name wasn't on the list. But if she pushed further, it might be Dr. Lionel Rourke. Former chair, Behavioral Neuroscience Department. Status retired. July 2023. No forwarding address on file. But Anaya remembered him. He was the professor who used to call research sacred. The one who always wore threadbare tweed jackets even in July. The one who vanished after a rumored disagreement with Rhinehart during a closed-door faculty review. Everyone said he had simply aged out. But Anaya remembered something else. A story from another student assistant. That Dr. Rourke had once walked out of a committee meeting after threatening to report statistical tampering. He never spoke of it again. Weeks later, he was gone. She started digging. The university had wiped his presence from the department's website, but a forgotten research database listed his last known university mailing address. With some creative cross-referencing and a few social media breadcrumbs, she tracked him down. A rented cabin outside Baltimore. No phone. No email. Just a name on a rural mailbox and a faded parking tag that read Johns Hoopkins Visitor, 2021. The air was colder up there. Pine needles crackled beneath her boots as she knocked on the faded wooden door. Nothing. She knocked again. Then the door creaked open. Dr. Lionel Rourke looked older than she remembered. His gray hair wild. Eyes sunken wary. For a moment, he looked like he might shut the door in her face. But then he saw the envelope in her hand. The photocopy of Rhinehart's study. And he stepped aside. "Come in," he said. "You're 2 years too late." Inside, the place was filled with books. Medical journals. Printouts. Post-it notes plastered across an old chalkboard, every one scrawled with names, numbers, timelines. She might have mistaken it for a conspiracy theorist's lair, if it wasn't all so precise. "You know about the data," she said. He nodded slowly. "Not just Rhinehart. It started with one bad study. Then another. Then a new department policy. Pressure for results. More grant money. More prestige. Why didn't you report it?" "I tried. I went to the dean. I went to the provost. They told me I was mistaken. That I was damaging the university's reputation. Then they stripped my committee roles. Took away my lab. Sent me off with a pension and a gag order." "A gag order?" Her voice tightened. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside, an NDA. Confidentiality agreement. Legal threats for breach. Signed and sealed. "They silence everyone," he said. "But you're not under contract." Anaya stared down at the paper. Her hands were cold. "If I go public," she whispered, "they'll ruin me." "They'll try." He leaned in. "But they won't be expecting you." Then he handed her a USB stick. "What's this?" Minutes from a closed-door meeting. July 2023. Rhinehart. The dean. The research ethics board. "I recorded the whole thing." Anaya's heart hammered in her chest. "Do what I couldn't," he said. She didn't sleep that night. Anaya sat cross-legged on her dorm floor, the USB drive from Dr. Rourke clutched tight in her hand, like a live grenade. She'd transferred the files to 2 encrypted cloud accounts. One labeled thesisdraftfinal.pdf, the kind of file name no one would ever open. Another buried inside a dummy Google Drive full of cat memes. She kept the original drive hidden inside an old thermos in her mini-fridge. By 3 a.m., she had a plan. She was going to leak the audio. Not to the student paper. Not to the faculty board. They were already compromised. No, she was going bigger. At 7:42 a.m., she uploaded the audio file to a whistleblower account run by Science Free, an international nonprofit that specialized in academic fraud exposure. She used a VPN, scrambled metadata, erased her browser history. And still, it took only 5 hours for the blowback to start. 2:15 p.m., email from Office of Enrollment Affairs. "Your enrollment has been placed under administrative review. Please report to the Office of the Dean by 9 a.m. tomorrow." 2:30 p.m., text from Eli Navarro. "They went through your locker. Took your USB cables and backup phone." 3:10 p.m., alert from University Immigration Portal. "Your visa status is currently flagged for reevaluation due to changes in your academic standing." They were trying to bury her. Erase her. Deport her if they had to. She sat on the floor of the Concordia Hoopkins Library, fists clenched under the reading desk, staring at the same space where it all started. She had done everything right. And now they were going to make her disappear. The others. That night, her inbox pinged. A new message. No subject. Just one line. "You're not alone anymore." Attached was a list of 5 names. All former RAs. All gone from the department. Quietly removed. Transferred. Expelled. Every single one connected to a Rhinehart paper. Below the names was a signal number. She messaged it. The reply came instantly. "We've been waiting for someone brave enough to make the first move." The signal call connected in total darkness. No video. Just a voice. "You really did it," the voice said. Female. "Calm. I thought you'd break." "I still might," Anaya whispered. "No," the voice said. "You won't. You've already burned the bridge. Now you walk across the fire." Over the next 40 minutes, Anaya learned the real scope of it. The girl on the call, Nadia, former psych grad student, had been Rhinehart's assistant 3 years ago. She'd flagged inconsistencies in a memory trial dataset. Weeks later, she was accused of plagiarism and lost her funding. Another voice joined, Leo, dismissed under academic dishonesty claims. Then Maria, forced into psychiatric leave after challenging a department statistic. All of them had tried to speak. All of them were shut down. And all of them had documentation, emails, early drafts, voice notes, grant correspondences, all pointing to one chilling truth. The fraud wasn't just Rhinehart. It was institutional. Rhinehart was the golden goose. The department chair, the funding director, even the university provost, they all had fingerprints on his studies. And every time someone got close to the rot, they were quietly removed. Anaya felt like vomiting. I have proof, she said. Audio. Files. A direct link between him and the department head. So do we, Nadia said. We've been waiting for a keystone witness. Someone's still inside. Anaya blinked. You want me to go public? We want you to blow the whole thing open. Silence. Then Nadia added. And we'll protect you. You're not just a student anymore, Anaya. You're the sword. The hearing. The boardroom in the Johns Hoopkins administrative building was clinical and cold, with a long mahogany table polished like it had never been touched by conflict. But today it would see a war. Anaya Jamesbond stood at the far end of the room. A single chair had been placed for her, deliberately isolating, directly under the harsh ceiling light. On the far side sat a panel of 6. The Dean of Student Integrity, the Vice Provost, 2 faculty members from unrelated departments, and, unsurprisingly, Dr. Miriam Keene, Chair of Behavioral Sciences. The same woman Anaya had recorded whispering with Rhinehart. She wasn't nervous anymore. She was ready. The dean cleared his throat. Ms. Jamesbond, you are here in response to allegations of unauthorized access to faculty research and potential breaches of academic conduct. Do you understand the severity of these charges? I do, Anaya said, her voice steady. And do you admit to accessing Dr. Rhinehart's private materials without permission? I accessed them, she said, because the university deliberately locked me out of a study I helped create, one that contains falsified data used to acquire millions in federal funding. Murmurs. Miriam Keene's face barely twitched. The dean raised his hand. You are accusing a tenured professor of... I'm not accusing him, she interrupted. I'm proving it. She pulled out a small USB stick and handed it to the IT technician seated off to the side. Everything is on there. Audio recordings, draft comparisons, emails from university accounts referencing altered data, ghostwritten reports, and explicit instructions to suppress internal audits. Keene spoke for the first time. This is absurd. These files could be fabricated. Anaya smiled. Then explain, she said, why 3 former graduate students were dismissed under mysterious circumstances after questioning similar studies. Why your office redirected internal ethics complaints without investigation. And why your voice is in this recording, she nodded toward the technician, saying, he's our primary grant anchor. If the numbers are off, make them on. The room went dead silent. Anaya didn't sit. She looked each board member in the eye. You tried to use this hearing to bury me, but all you did was give me a microphone. Would you like to proceed to part 11, Aftermath, where the fallout begins, or prepare a closing narration for your voiceover/video adaptation from this turning point? Collapse. The storm hit faster than anyone expected. Within 72 hours of the hearing, the Chronicle of Higher Education ran a headline. Newspaper, Johns Hoopkins accused of multi-million-dollar academic fraud. The article leaked internal emails, featured snippets from the audio recordings, and published anonymized quotes from former RAs who confirmed the manipulation of data. Anaya had sent the USB to them the night before the hearing. By the time the board could even begin damage control, the federal grant office had already opened a formal investigation. Social media was ablaze with the hashtags. Hashtag Hoopkins cover-up. Hashtag Anaya Jamesbond did that. Hashtag fake science real money. Inside the university, chaos erupted. Dr. Miriam Keene took sabbatical. Dr. Rhinehart was unreachable, his official university bio page removed, his name scrubbed from upcoming conferences. The Department of Behavioral Sciences was locked down. All ongoing grant funding frozen. Half the faculty placed under review. Students held protests on the quad, holding signs that read, "Truth is not equal to tenure. Data isn't yours to doctor. Protect whistleblowers, not liars." As for Anaya, the disciplinary board had no choice but to drop all charges. But they didn't offer an apology. They offered silence. A silence that told her, "You were right, but you were never meant to win." She packed her things from the Concordia Hoopkins Library the following Friday, her tote bag heavier than usual. Not with guilt, with resolve. Because she knew now, what she had exposed was just one rot in a building full of them. And she wasn't done yet. 6 months later, Anaya Jamesbond walked across the graduation stage to polite claps and sterile speeches. She didn't wear the university sash. She wore a plain black gown with a single red pin, the color of truth, the color of the pen Rhinehart had used to lie. She didn't shake hands with the dean. She looked him in the eye and walked past. Outside the ceremony, a reporter waited. Not from a big-name outlet, but from a student-run podcast. "Anaya," the girl asked, holding a mic, "do you regret going public?" Anaya smiled. "No. I regret how long I stayed quiet." The world hadn't magically fixed itself. Johns Hoopkins University had hired a new ethics officer, put out a glossy PR campaign, and launched an internal transparency initiative. But behind closed doors, power still clenched its teeth. The grant money hadn't stopped flowing. But neither had Anaya. She'd been offered spots at 4 investigative fellowships. She chose one that paired young researchers with international journalists. Her next assignment? Pakistan, the hidden cost of U.S. academic influence. A full circle. She clicked her pen, opened her notebook, and began to write again. Not as someone's assistant, not as a whisper in a lab, but as the woman who blew the lid off one of academia's most protected scandals. And somewhere deep in the Concordia Hoopkins Library, behind the psychology shelves, the old backup hard drive still sat, dusty, cracked, and no longer silent.